So we're talking about vitamins and supplements for pregnancy.
That's super exciting. Welcome to Well Run Momma's YouTube channel. I always do this. Welcome to Well Run Momma's YouTube channel. It's like I'm poking. Oh my gosh, it's like Star Trek when you're like. Today we're going to talk about vitamins and supplements for pregnancy. We have our resident herbalist here, Sarah, who's also a midwife. I am also a midwife. We thought we would be super helpful. We get a lot of questions about what can we take, what can we not take, what's helpful, what's not helpful, and so we thought we would simplify that for you a little bit. So I'm going to turn it over. Sarah's going to start us off.
Well, I think the first question that we usually get is about prenatal vitamins. What are the good kind? What should I avoid? For the most part, we just want to consume a vitamin that's from a whole food source. Some of the reason why vitamins have like astronomical numbers on them is because they're betting on the fact that you're not going to absorb that much. Like you're just going to pee out the rest. Yes. But if you get a vitamin that's a whole food supplement, it might look like there's a smaller percent of those vitamins in there, but you will absorb them so much better. And usually you feel better.
Yeah, because it takes less for your body to kind of process it, so it's easier on your digestive system. I think for me too, another kind of tip to that, taking like a lower dose of it. Like if it requires a lot of pills, taking like half that dose, because sometimes that quantity of vitamins and supplements is a lot. The truth is babies take everything that they need from you and you're living on leftovers, and so if you feel bad, that's because the baby took everything they needed and there wasn't leftovers. You had bad leftovers.
You kind of know what your own diet looks like. So if you know that you've, just had a really busy week and you've eaten out a lot, maybe making sure you do take, the full dose of your prenatal vitamin, or incorporating some powdered greens or something like that will kind of take the place of that. It should supplement your diet.
The other thing we kind of want to talk a little bit about was we wanted to break down like a couple systems and what you could do for those systems, and one of them being your immune system. But your immune system's a little compromised during pregnancy, and so when you're worried about getting sick, or you've come in contact with people who are sick, or you are sick, that's probably the most phone calls we get. They don't feel well, and what can they take?
Just like basic herbal supplements, just like your basic echinacea, like those sorts of things, they're usually really safe to take. But you do need to be careful of over-the-counter medications. There's definitely some that are in a classification that we know causes problems during pregnancy, and especially while breastfeeding.
Where is their comfort level at? So like if they call me and they're sick, like the first question I always ask them is, well, what do you normally do when you're sick? Well, if that's more herbal or natural remedies, then we'll kind of go down that road. If it's more over the counter, maybe then I'll kind of tell them what is safe over the counter, for a limited time. And maybe we add a couple easier things. I'm like such a huge fan of tea when people get sick.
Yes.
Huge fan. And even like traditional medicinal, they make some really great, like throat coats, great, cold care. There's some teas that I think are really great for those individuals who aren't really used to using herbs. We touched base with each other yesterday because I'm getting over this cold. And I'm like, I think I might be dying because I've had a cold for 2 weeks now. And she was like, hey, where are you with your vitamin D? Like, have you been getting out of the house? Are you doing your vitamin D supplement? And so even us knowing what we know, we're touching base with each other and going, hey, here's the things that I'm trying. Pregnancy's really no different. It's about kind of gauging where you're at. And the goal is just not to upset your stomach or cause you to have preterm labor contractions, right?
Right.
The other thing that we thought we'd talk about is we get a lot of questions about like omegas.
Omegas, just in general, like they just do so many different things. Like they help you regulate your hormones, they help with your baby's brain growth. Like really there's just a whole host of things that DHA and omegas do. It's important to say too that even if you don't eat fish, that there are some plant sources. So we even have like a vegan algae omega. So you can absolutely get those even if you are vegetarian or vegan. There are many sources.
The other thing that we thought we'd touch on is probiotics. Do you know how many women call me to say, can I drink kombucha?
Yes, please do. Don't drink gross, questionable kombucha.
Probiotics kind of help you have this positive flora vaginally, and there's a lot of places you can get probiotic, again, like we've talked about food, because it really, again, taking the pill if that's easier for you to remember, but if you like sauerkraut or anything fermented, actually. The other thing we want to talk about briefly was iron. And the reason we want to talk about it is because a lot of women are anemic during pregnancy, anemic being like your red blood cell count is a little bit low.
There are lots of ways to treat anemia naturally with vitamins, supplements, diet, you name it. Probably the biggest feedback that we get about just kind of like your over-the-counter iron pill is that it's very constipating. If you get it from a food source, or if you get food-based iron complex, which New Chapter sells one, which is pretty amazing. There's also Probiotics. There's lots of different little food-based supplements, but those don't tend to be constipating. And just like your prenatal vitamins, they tend to be absorbed a little bit better.
What you bringing that up makes me think about fiber too. I do get some phone calls about what kind of fiber supplements are safe. Just something that's not going to make you super crampy. Senna leaf or Cascara sagrada, those are a little bit harsher. Again, you're just trying to do something a little bit more mild. Nothing habit forming. The last thing we want to talk a little bit was CalMag.
Sometimes Charlie horses happen around 30 weeks or so.
Your body does kind of get a little depleted, and it is really hard because CalMag is something that is really difficult to have as a supplement.
When it comes to calcium, magnesium, food always going there first. Your broccoli, almonds, like there are definitely some easy food sources. Almond milk, funny enough, has more calcium in it than cow's milk.
Coral calcium is, I think, closest to our own bone density, but something obviously you wouldn't want to take for really long periods of time. But as somebody who has like joint muscle pain, sometimes I have to do coral calcium because it's better than having that kind of deficiency, right? And sometimes I really am a fan of vegetal silica. What silica does is it helps your body absorb it. Yeah, so there's just a few ideas about some vitamins and supplements. Do you have any last minute thoughts?
Just reinforcing that idea that if you're generally eating well, you don't necessarily need all the supplements in the world. In fact, taking too many supplements can be bad for you too. You can't go wrong with food. You really can't. So really trying those first before you get on a supplement.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because we made our video where we talked about all the foods you can eat in labor and pregnancy. And then we were like, we didn't really talk about like avoiding processed foods. We're like, oh, we just kind of, we're so excited to tell you that you can eat all the things that we didn't really spend time talking about, like eating foods in close to its most natural state as possible, right? And how that's so much easier on anybody's body. It's also going to be the most cost effective.
Yeah, it'll be cheaper.
So make it easy on yourself. And this is a perfect way where your partner can come support you by helping you kind of prep some of those foods, and just thinking of all those colorful foods you can get in your diet so that you don't need those supplements. There's some little ideas. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. Please like, subscribe, ring the bell, because we're not typically rock eaters.
Right.
Don't know why I just had a picture of like a horse with like a salt lick in their room. I have to tell you, I did two things that made Adam so angry. I've never seen his face get that angry.
What's that?
I burped and blew it on him. And then I pinched his ear. Like so mad.
You pinched his
Like
ear?
vein popping out mad. I just was like, oh, you're so cute.
And I was hangry at the time too, so they compounded it.
But good kombucha.
Don't buy black market kombucha. That would be so funny. You make a little video with a guy in a trench coat who's like, kombucha?
Questionable.
Sushi?